All right, we are live. Hello. Hi. Hello,
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Dr. Pia. Hi, Deema.
Hi.
Hi.
It's a pleasure and an honor to be with you tonight. To thank you لكل اللي they joined us in this live roundtable. لأول مرة, Sira is really putting out an exciting and هيك one of a kind subject, how to encourage kids to read. ومنقول ليش one of a kind لأنه ما بنشوف platforms out there that really promote أو بتشجع أو بتعلم الأهل how to initiate their kids to read. ونحن صراحة يعني Pia and I, we were looking بالمنطقة who could potentially be the expert on reading. It was such a pleasure and a surprise to find مش إنه there's an expert, there's a passionate and a long time expert who has had a full career in initiating kids to learning. وهلا بتحكينا أكتر ديما شو بتعملي. بس I'm one of your biggest fans,
Thank you so much, Sandra.
and thank you for having such a mission and impact on our kids, on the parents, on really telling us not to forget that our kids should read. رح أترككم تفكروا هيك شوي كل وحدة عن حالها، ونرجع بنقول للناس شو رح يصير معنا اليوم. So دكتور بيا، أنت part من سيرك، pillar of سيرة، بس كمان عارفة لأنه في ناس جداد. And then we let Deema
Perfect.
introduce yourself.
Thank you. Super briefly. So, hi, everybody. I'm Pia. I'm a child and adolescent psychologist. I'm heading psychology services at Sira. So basically, I did my studies in the UK, ورجعت على Lebanon. The whole idea was really to try to break the stigma and the boundaries in terms of why it's so important to think about mental health, especially when we're talking kids and adolescents and parenting. When I met Sandra and I heard what she was doing with Sira, it kind of clicked. لأنه we can reach more people and hopefully people عم بيستفيدوا من هالمسجز اللي عم نجرب نوصلهم. و reading being really one of them. يعني هلا we were talking and I was saying that I have my private practice و I teach at university as well. But in my private practice وقت العالم بيفوتوا أول شغلة بيشوفوها هو كتب، لأنه it's so important to use books to teach kids different skills and different kind of competencies that they need. So هلا أكيد we'll talk more about them. So عن جد it is a pleasure to have Deema with us. Please, floor is yours. وهلا we'll have a longer
Sandra,
discussion.
Dr. Pia, thank you so much for this wonderful introduction. يعني I'm so happy إنه I'm finally part of Sira. So just a quick brief on my experience. So I've been working in the field of education for 16 years. I'm a proud AUB graduate. كتير بحكي proud, يعني underline that كتير because I'm so proud. I also did my bachelor's in elementary education, تعليم أطفال. وبعدين ركزت على language arts وخلينا نحكي language arts. وبعدين عملت الماسترز تاعوني الماجستير the UK King's College London كمان in education. I worked all my life in education. I worked in the private sector, so يعني schools that had a lot of resources or a lot of money. I also worked in the يعني government, which is non-fee paying schools اللي هم ما كان عندهم المصادر ولا resources. بس the common denominator in all of these settings that I worked in was the importance of reading, and in every school, regardless of قديش تعتير أو مش تعتير أو they're established or not, دايما في talk about literacy, about reading. the past year قررت أترك الcorporate world اللي هي بس كنت لساتني بعالم التعليم وأركز على my page اللي هي ديما العالمي. I focus on supporting parents, mothers to become authors, parents to know how to nurture readers, sharing my favorite books and so on.
Great. So we're looking forward to the discussion اليوم على كيف to initiate kids to reading وندعم الأهل بهالمشن. نحن بس we will explain to our attendees, بس if you can give me a minute just to explain what Sira is about for the new joiners. So you will spend with us, نحن هلأ we're live, and you will spend with us around an hour and a half with a discussion مع ديما وبيا، ورح نحكي أكتر عن موضوعنا اليوم. You can interact, and please interact with us through questions. So you can ask on the app, you can ask in the Q&A in front of you, and you can ask your questions anonymously لما يبين اسمكم بيهم in the recording. So please let the questions flow. بهمنا إنه نقدر نفيدكم. إذا في أي challenges you face, any use case, we're ready to help, and this will make the conversation even more هيك interactive. So I'll be relaying back the questions to both of you, Pia and Deema, and كمان بنذاكر الناس إنه نحن on the Sira app every night we have a round table من الاثنين للخميس with mental health experts and experts in the field. وكمان we have support groups on different topics related to parenting, to couples, to relationships, to individual struggles, to work. Every night كمان عنا mental health experts that people can see for free privately. The whole app is free, بس إنه كمان you can meet with a psychologist, a child psychologist, a couples and individual psychologist, a sexual health educator, a life coach. Every night عنا حدا. So please, emotional support is there and it's free. So take advantage وخلينا هيك نقدر ندعمكم in your life journey. ما رح نطول أكتر. Let's هيك jump right into our topic tonight. هبلش معك ديما. يعني هل throughout your career وهالباشن اللي عندك إياها for reading، إذا اليوم يعني بدك تقنع الأهل يلي معنا عن أهمية initiating their kids to reading, what would you هيك what would be the main benefits if you can هيك point them out. إذا بعد في ناس يعني كنت عم تحكي إنه بيهمنا to attract اليوم الناس يلي ما بتقرأ هي أو أولادها ما بيقروا بعد. What could we tell them يعني in terms of
So Sandra, unfortunately كتير ناس بفكروا إنه القراية هي القدرة إنه أنت تفك الحرف وتقرأ. ودائما بعطي هذا المثال إنه أنا ما بحكي فرنسي اوكي، بس اعطيني هلا نوفل بالفرنش بقدر اقراها لاني بعرف الاحرف. بقدر اقرا جستوي جابيت بعرف شو I don't know, like I can read the words, but that is not reading. And people دائما الاهل we gravitate towards انه ابني عم بيعرف يقرا كل الاحرف وكل الكلمات، بس هذا مش هدف القراءة. هدف القراءة إنه لما يكون عندك أنت صار عندك دور في ردة فعل أو صار في تفاعل بينك وبين المحتوى اللي عم تقرأه. So إذا صار في a reaction between what you're reading and how you are feeling, your values, it makes you think, it makes you reflect, it makes you feel empathy towards someone, it makes you feel like you're not alone. هدول هم من objectives of reading. And I always say إنه الأهل لازم يتركوا هذا موضوع الحرف وفلوينت okay fine بنركز عليهم، بس هدول يتركوهم للمدرسة. أهم إشي بالقراية النقاش اللي بيقدر يصير بيننا وبين الطفل لما نكون عم نقرأ، لأنه بعطينا insights. وأكيد دكتور Pia will talk more about that, بس إنه it gives you insights about their feelings, their emotions, what they're going through, if they experienced something. You can teach a lot of lessons. ما بحب دائما أحكيها هاي لأنه دائما معظم كتب العربي إنه يعلموا درس، بس you can teach them about different scenarios in life, how to deal with them through books and readings. So Anna, this is what I believe the objective of reading is. It's really connecting with what you're reading and, you know, helping you maybe refine your values, reflect on them, etc.
You see, sorry, I'm going to jump in, but I fully agree with what you're saying, this idea of hanjet connecting. يعني a lot of the time I tell parents الولد بيكون بعد يمكن ما بيعرف يقرأ، بس I tell parents إنه أوكي أنت يمكن أنتوا قريتوا القصة to the child ويمكن حكيتوا معه شوي، وهيدا it's وقت to connect you and them. لأنه مثل ما كنت عم بتقولي they're going to project onto the character هن what they're going through. إذا they have a difficulty with a specific emotion رح تبين through the story. So إذا في عنا ولد يمكن ما عم بيقدر يعبر إنه متضايق إنه معصب through the story, it would facilitate it. Well, there's one thing that I always tell parents. بيقولوا لي مثلا ابني أو بنتي كتير بحبوا هذا الكتاب بس إنه قرينيش 10 مرات إنه خلص أنا زهقته. I always tell parents to kind of change it. Switch things around. Tell your child to tell you the story. حتى إذا ما بيعرفوا يقروا, let them just project onto the picture. مع أكترية اللي عم نقريها مع الولاد في صور. So let the child tell you the story that they want. لأنه وقتها هن they're going to be imagining what's going on in the story. They're going to be telling you what's going on for them. So when you use كمان يلي الولد عم بيقولوا بهيدا story, أنتوا رح تقدروا تعرفوا كيف كمان تعطوا strategies و tools to deal with whatever they are going through. And I think this is very important. to allow yourself, I think, to be creative while reading. لأنه مثل ما كنت عم بتقولي ديما, it's not the actual words, it's the content, it's the story, it's what we're creating together, how we're really understanding what the child is saying, شو هن الvalues اللي نحن يمكن بدنا نوصلهم للولد, بس شو كمان الولد عم بيجرب يقلنا through the points يمكن يلي عم بيركز عليهم, أو يمكن ليه علقوا أكتر شيء على هيدا part of the story and not another part. So كل هول they give us insight at what the child is going through. هول they're super important.
Absolutely. If I can just add one thing, Sandra, here, كمان يعني I get this so often and I posted a lot about it. بعرف إنه أنا هون عندي ابني هزاع ومرعد, I know how dreadful it is لما نقرأ نفس الكتاب 100 مرة. يعني literally I think حافظة 30 كتاب, يعني في space be my brain رايح للكتب, which is very unfortunate. You know, I'd rather be able to retain other things. بس دائما بحب أذكر الأهل إنه actually لما يصير هيك مع ابنكم أو بنتكم لازم تنبسطوا كتير. You should be very, very happy, because what is happening actually, this is part of developing literacy skills and reading skills, which are so important to the development of the child when it comes to the world of reading. So إحنا مرات بنقول إنه يعني دايما بقول للأهل basically when we learn that, ليه الطفل عم بيطلب نقرأ نفس الكتاب أكثر من مرة؟ لأنه let's say إحنا we take it for granted, the whole being able to decipher words, link the picture with the words, all of that إحنا هذا خلص it's robotic عنا. بس للطفل مثلا أول مرة بنقرأ الكتاب هو بيكون عم بيطلع بس على الفيشل expressions تاعون الكاركترز. ثاني مرة قرينا على الكتاب مخه عم بيركز على الكلمات, إنه كل ما ماما تقرأ عم تحكي I don't know whatever, إنه yay tomato, ما بعرف ليه اخترعت هيك, بس anyways. ثالث مرة عم نقرأ الكتاب عم بسمع ماما عم بتقول the tomato is red. So عم بيصير كل هدول schemas in his brain, they're connecting, and this is why he wants to read the same or she wants to read the same book, because actually they are looking at the book from many different perspectives every time, and that is facilitating their reading skills. The other thing اللي بحب أحكي لما نزهق من قراية نفس القصة, as Dr. Pia said, you know, trying to mix it up, change the characters. If you were the character, what would you do مثلا, أو إنه let's try to read it from the back to the front, إنه make it عشان أنتوا بس إنه ما تنتحروا قد ما عن جد it's like you know I'm not going to read this book again. بس كمان try to think as a parent, هنا لازم نكون proactive. إنه ليش ابني عم بيحب هاي القصة؟ ليه بنتي عم تحب هاي؟ Is it because of the rhyming text? Is it because of the illustration? Is it because of the author? And this is my prompter إنه maybe I should get her another book لهذا المؤلف. يمكن لازم أجيب لها كمان كتاب من هذا الillustrator. و this is how I'm expanding her world of reading and books.
لأنه that's very true. There's always a reason why children بيعلقوا على شيء.
Exactly.
لأنه they're rediscovering it in different ways. أنتوا لإلكم it's the same book, هن لإلهم it's a whole different side of the book. So it's as exciting as the first time. وبتشوفون عيونهم بيضووا زي شيء وقت بيحضروا يمكن something they can watch it 10,000 times لأنه كل مرة بيشوفوا شيء. Same thing with the books. With the books في manipulation as well. So يمكن هالمرة برموا الصفحة لاحظوا شيء ما لاحظوه. You need to give كمان the child this ability to manipulate the books. وفي كتير يمكن هو الفلابينج books etc. So kids they love them, they're able to go back and front. So this is very important كمان لإلهم لأنه it shows you هن شو اللي بيحبوه, هن شو اللي عم بعلقوا عليه. And like you were saying Deema, you get an insight as to أنا what my child likes. لأنه نحن we want to encourage them to read, مش إنه we got this one book وخلص that's it. They love this one book, let's try to kind of add things that they like to encourage them to read more. And this is how they will grow with this love to read. ما رح تكون بس إنه يا الله I have to read. So this is really important.
أي أعمار عادة منبلش to initiate them to reading؟ هيدا سؤال. كمان should we read different languages ديما؟ يعني فينا نبلش أو منركز على language وحدة أو
So أنا أول إشي هلأ science and research say إنه a fetus, if that's the right terminology, can listen to what you're reading. هلا أنا الصراحة وأنا حامل ما كنت طايقة حالي وما كنت طايقة اللي قدامي ومش طايقة دول. So لا مش هكذب أقول لكم إنه والله I read for هزاع ومرعد when they were in my tummy. I did not, but I know some people who did, and if you have the energy and you're excited, do it. بعدين مع هزاع عشان again ما بحب أعملكم إنه أنا الإنسان المثالي وأنا هيك. لا أنا مثلا مع هزاع دخل نيكيو أول ما انولد, he was colic for 3 months. I was seriously depressed, كنت عم ببكي طول الوقت. So I did not read with هزاع until he was تقريبا 4 months بديت أقرأ معه. وصار so it's never too early to read with your child. هلا احنا ايش بس المهم الاودينس اللي يعرفوا انه احنا ما عم نقرا هيك I hope you'll take this one takeaway. we're not reading عشان نعلم. We are reading at this from 0 to 1. عم نقرا مع الطفل to help them associate reading with feeling safe and loved and hugged and cuddled and so it's not like انه لازم يقعد straight or احنا no, it's just positivity, and it's nurturing that association. When mom reads to me or dad reads to me, I feel safe, I'm close, we're cuddling, we're sitting together, and this positive association will help them when they're a year plus يصير بدهم يقروا أكتر وأكتر. So that's number 1. Number 2, ابدا ما في harm. كثير في ناس بيقولوا انه oh my gosh اذا بنقرا بلغتين او بنحكي بلغتين بصير في delays. That is absolutely not true. بالعكس, with the exception if your child through a speech therapist كان عنده language delay و it has been خلص identified and diagnosed, then بيقولوا لك yes, go for the easier language. بس ولكن إذا ما في أي مشاكل, بالعكس تقري بلغتين 3 وبتستمتعي. أنا أولادي بسمعوا اللغتين عربي واللغة الإنجليزية، حتى قلت لهم فرنش، يعني معني again صرت بعرف أقرأ تشوبي، كنت أقرأ I've never heard of تشوبي بس كنت أقرأ لهم تشوبي. بس تقدري تقريهم، ومرعد صار يحكي الكلمات وهيك، طبعا مش فاهمة pronunciation probably it's bad، بس ما في أي harm إنه تقري بلغتين، بالعكس it's a strength.
طب وإذا
Sorry, بس لأنه في important points to add on to what Deema was saying, this idea of why we read for kids that young. لأنه I have parents who are surprised وقت بقول لهم إيه حتى إذا they're just born, do sit down and read to them. And again, reading مش لأنه بدنا يسمعوا القصة. It's because it's the tone of your voice. It's how your voice is going up and down while you're trying to read the story. It's this joint moments that you have together, this joint attention. I want my child يصير يتعود إنه في عنا أشياء بدنا نعملهم together. And I will look to where he's looking, all of the books when kids are really young, هلا أكيد ما فيهم يقشعوا مزبوط when they're born. So ما عم نقول نحن day one hold those kind of, those soft books. بس إنه whenever you feel comfortable, depending on how your kind of pregnancy, birth, and all of this experience was, the moment that you're ready, the earliest you can, the better, obviously. And it's about sitting together, holding your child, sitting next to your child, تطلعوا فيه تشوفوا وين عم بتطلع الولد, what are they interested in, is that it's something that's shaking in the book, or if it's different textures. Again, it's very, very important, the sensation of the book, the way that they're touching. With kids that young, it's always the very sensory ones. So it's really important to start that from day one. So you'd be reading, you'd be kind of naming. So you're not necessarily telling a story, but you're relating, this is soft, this is nice. So your voice will be soft and nice. And the child will start bit by bit linking the words with the feeling of safety, of positivity. So this is what's so important about starting to read really early on with your child. And I fully agree in terms of language. في كتير theories وفي contradictory research, but there are research showing sometimes it might kind of make it a bit more kind of that they're late, but it's not something significant. مش it's going to be a year later. وفي other studies that showed لا, children are not going to talk later لأنه they have more than one language. So at the end of the day, it becomes into your own kind of choice and what you prefer.
Yeah.
What's important, it's also to just sit down and spend this time and see what the child is liking. في ولاد مرات بيحبوا specific sounds that are in one language and not in another. So make this, it's a fun experience. It shouldn't be لازم نعمل هيدا الشيء. It's a fun experience for you to get to know your child and for your child to get to explore new things.
وكمان هون مهم نتذكر، دائما بقول لparents إنه probably the only thing that will require your full attention is when you read with your child. You can breastfeed while being on your phone, because I've seen experts doing more than one thing while breastfeeding, but they're doing it. You can try to put your baby to sleep for an hour and you're checking your phone, you're on your Kindle, but you cannot. Probably the only thing in my head, like in parenting, where you're 100% with your child is when you're reading. You need to read, let's تقرا, so everything else رح تكون distracted, and it's probably one of the few things that you can do together. And هون كمان بدي أحكي إنه دايما بدنا نفكر إنه أنا دايما بقول مثلا لما كان هزاع صغير وأجان he had to be in the ICU, بعدين he was very colic وأشياء، أنا anyways I used to read. So if you're a mother who anyways you're reading a novel at night and you read, it's very simple, you can read it out loud. إنه حتى لو عم تقروا إشي زي مثلا ما بعرف إذا حدا قرا Verity like Colleen Hoover like you know it's a bit like intense. They don't know words. They, as Dr. Pia has said, it's just the tone of your voice, the tonality, your intonation, and that's number one. Well, it's also a good idea for you to either research, and I know sometimes it gets confusing, but even follow pages, not necessarily my page, but anyone who talks about reading. لأنه كتير we simplify it for you. مثلا 0 to 3 months جيبوا high contrast books. إنه your kids ما بيقدروا يشوفوا بهذا العمر. They're seeing shades of gray up until 1 month. So بنجيب كتب عليهم أبيض وأسود. They're high contrast books. أو فيهم بس لونين. And very simple عليه دائرة عليه هذا. So عم نحكي عم بتطلع عليهم we name the things etc. So again, I think especially Arab, like إحنا كيف نفكر إنه كتير عنا تفكير تقليدي, a very traditional way of how reading should be. لازم نكون قاعدين بحضن بعض ومنتبهين وقاعدين عم نقرأ صفحة صفحة ومن أول صفحة لآخر صفحة. And if we break that down and just think association, fun reading, I think it's just less stress على الأهل, less stress على الchild. It's just fun. يعني أنا وأولادي دائما بحكي إنه I never change the diaper بدون ما أكون عم بقرأ لهم. هم ماسكين كتاب عم بيعضوا على كتاب, it's a pacifier, عم بكبوها, أنا عم بقرأها لأنه حفظتها 100 مرة قريتها, you know. So when you're changing diapers بالسيارة وهم عم باكلوا blah blah blah, there's always a chance to expose them to reading.
And هون I need to talk about culture لأنه it's happened with me. I'm used to whenever we're going out دايما في كتاب in the backpack يعني when we're going out and people look weird sometimes إنه why you're sitting down you're reading إنه شو عم بيقرأ, he's so young, what is he reading? And it يعني please it's really about what you're convinced of. Culture رح يضل في عالم you know that are saying given their opinion, it's about what you're convinced of. So if you feel that any of the things that we're saying are important to you, no matter you know the feedback that you're getting, reading is important. It's the sensation, it's the sitting down, it's the concentration. لأنه when you're reading like we were saying, you can read the book 10 times, the child can read the book 10 times, so they're going to sit down, they're going to be exploring. So you're teaching them to be able to have this quiet time. لأنه نحن بدنا إنه الأولاد كمان يتعلموا يلتهوا لوحدهم. We don't always want kind of very kind of hyper kids. Of course بدنا نعمل لهم activities, but there should be this downtime. وقت عم نحكي downtime لازم الولد يكون عم بيعمل شيء لوحده, and reading they can do that by themselves. So أكيد it's important for us to read to them, but sometimes كمان it's important for them to try to do some of these things by themselves. So I think it's really really important to keep that in mind.
عنا سؤال من الأودينس إذا فينا if we can tackle it. My child is 2 years old and doesn't sit when I read to her. What can I do?
She shouldn't sit when you read to her. She should not sit when you read to her, and I would be concerned if your 2-year-old is sitting while you're reading to her. يعني again, I do a workshop ماخذ footage لهزاع actually when he was 2, he's in his diaper وأنا عم بقرأ له قصة اسمها خرفان عمي خلفان. Literally هو عم بلعب across the room, عم بمسك trucks و he's smashing them, وأنا عم بعمل له إنه خرفان عمي خرفان ليست ككل, وهو من بعيد خرفان تلعب وتركض فيل, وهو بيحكي بستان, وبعدين يروح يخمع التراك, you know. So she shouldn't be sitting, she should be exploring. So أنا what I would do if I were you, I would get the book and I would be reading in a very excited way. إنه oh my goodness مثلا ما بعرف in English let's say إنه I'm trying to think of a story, بس إنه oh my god the boy went to the moon, oh my god the moon, you know. So بتحكي هيك دغري your بنتك رح تكون attracted and she's going to be intrigued and be like what is she reading about, and then she's going to come and peek and you'll be like come sit, let's read 2 pages. And I always say again, ما بعرف ليه كتير I see it in our culture كمان إنه we have this thing إنه mission رح نقرأ قصة كاملة, so we have to read it من the cover page لل end page. Why? إنه عن جد why؟ إنه الauthor مش واقف فوق راسك, ما حدا واقف فوق راسك. Just read as much as the attention span of your child, you know. So أنتي if there's a duck إنه oh my god quack quack there's a duck, she did quack quack, to be a duck. This is what a 2-year-old wants, and the more enjoyment they see with the story, the more that they'll have the patience to sit and engage with it. But your daughter is completely fine, she's behaving like a 2-year-old and it's 100% normal. Just keep on reading. And I don't want عن جد لأنه unfortunately كتير أهل at this age لما الchild عم بيصيروا عم بيتحركوا كتير و they're much more mobile وهيك وبطلوا قاعدين على حضنهم, بصيروا يقولوا لا أنا بنتي ما بتحب القراية, so they stop reading. So then actually بنتك بتبطل تحب القراية لأنه بطلت عندها exposure. So if we just change our mindset on how reading is, Then we had, oh, come on, sorry, just one last thing. It's very important. 2 is a very like a cute age. I love that age. But always remember when you select books for 2-year-olds, they are so intrigued by their surrounding. You know, إنه if they found a spider رح يصيروا interested in books لهم spiders. You know, إذا رح يعني بقول لكم قصة إنه أنا مرعد عنده مشكلة ما بفرق بين السكويرل والراتس. أوكي، وفي عنده كتاب عم بجرب يشرح له انه في سكويرل ورات واتس كونفيوزنج يعني. فاليوم اكشلي فاني انف من الكتاب مرعد بقول لي مام سكويرل انا قلت يا عيني لا رح يطلع في رات بالبيت. مام سكويرل وبيأشر لي انه سكويرل. I'm like there's ما في سكويرلز بدبي اكيد لا. فاكشلي بيطلعوا هي انسست انه في سكويرل. بسحب ايدي للجراج بيطلع في رات اكشلي بالجراج وانا نو ماي جاد I'm like رح نرجع نقرا القصة بس عشان نوضح لك ايش السكويرل وايش الهات بس pick up on these things. He's 2 يعني he's almost 3 بس pick up on these things. If I feel like my daughter is very intrigued with hats or I don't know dresses or cars or هذا, get books that talk about that لأنه they'll feel so proud إنه عم بيعملوا هدول الconnections.
And it's very important what you're saying. It's true. And we want them to at least sit down for a bit to try and explore. But Iza, they're not standing up. Direct her attention to whatever you are reading in the book. When they're 2, they want to link things. Yani, Iza, in the story, مثلا you're reading something, they will go pick up everything in the room that looks like it. So Iza, there's a bear in the story. If she found a teddy bear in the room, she could pick up all of the teddy bears. So make it a game. Iza, she doesn't have yet the endurance to sit down. It's fine. Iza, she wants to get up, redirect her attention to anything that relates to the book. Do you remember where is the teddy bear? Do you have one? Let's put it. Yumkin, they want to read the story with us. And don't be afraid to be silly with your kids. They love it. And they're going to role play what they're seeing in the book. So 2-year-olds, I'm talking hella from experience, you know, we always say the terrible 2s, they throw a tantrum. So it's all about no. We want to say no for everything, even though it's a yes. So you got a book where Chupi is actually saying no. And now what we're doing is he's actually acting it out, and it's all about pretend play. We want them to act it out. We want them to actually, you know, scream it out, the no. And then in the story, tell them, okay, we're saying no, we're very angry with things, but then how do we calm down? How do we get things to be better? So play it out with your kids. They're not going to sit down. So make sure that whatever they are doing while they're being active relates to what you're reading. And like you were saying, when you act it out as well as a parent, they're going to be super interested. They're going to look at you funny. They're going to laugh with you. And that's what we want when you're reading. We want both of you to have fun. So I really, really want to emphasize that, because sometimes when I talk to parents like this, بيطلعوا فيه إنه what you mean. And some parents don't realize that this is necessary. We want to be silly. We want to be sitting on the floor with them. We want them to kind of play it out. يكونوا عم بعرفش على ظهرنا إذا في this is what they're doing in the story. إذا mom and dad are playing with the child in the story, they would want to play with you, and that's okay. Again, you find your style. You don't have to act it all out like in the book, but find your way with your kids, and it should be really an enjoyable time. That's the whole point of reading.
أنا سؤال لإلي كمان. when are هيك كأهل كتير بنكون we are pushing too much على reading وعم تصير stressful. يعني شو هيك signs that you have to be?
I think the biggest thing is usually what I notice and I observe is when your child يعني خلينا نحكي لما يصيروا عم باخدوا KG2, let's say they're 5, and بالمدرسة بيصيروا يعطوهم level reading programs. Most schools عندهم إياه, which is انت level A, انت level B, level C. Automatically الماما بتتحول من mom, she's reading with her child before bedtime or in the morning, or they're talking about the characters, into يلا إيش هاي? No, it's not the, it's this, you know, ارجع عيد الجملة, you know. So we shift completely to looking at fluency, looking at if they're pronouncing the words right, and looking if they're, and I'm like, oh my God. Again, مرات بقدر أكون, I would say guilty, بس أختي كتير guilty يعني. أختي, I'm like, Jian, you're not her teacher. إنه بنتك بتحب تقرأ, like you're making her hate. Honestly, I was a teacher. I was a first grade teacher. That's my responsibility as a teacher. Into your responsibility is to listen to your kids, تسمعوهم عم بيقروا, to pick up if they have challenges, prompt them, correct them, reread a sentence انه اليوم هزاع كنت عم بقرا معاه and he's like مش فاهم like انه I'm like ماما لانه you're reading it like a robot عم تقرا كلمه 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 let's try to read this together انه بسرعه مثلا the boy went to school let's read it together بلا وبعدين صرت اناقش بس ما تعلقوا لي على موضوع deciphering words discuss the characters talk about them this is your role ask questions ماما عمره صار لك هيك لانه let's be honest كمان هدول الكتب اللي هم level reading programs sometimes they're so boring and dreadful the books you know انه Cliff and Chip لساتهم نفس اللي انا كنت علمت فيهم English you know Cliff and Chip went up the tree Cliff and Chip went down the road بعرف شو so let's find a way to make it exciting and please 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 there's a time for academic reading what I call academic reading and I want to develop my child's reading skills and you know we need to do the homework and they need to read and they need to know the sight words and there is time for pleasure reading and pleasure reading أنا بقول لك as a parent is significantly more important than academic reading because 16 years of experience in education with the exception of I would say almost 1% of no even less 0.5% of every student I saw and I saw many illy they could not access reading you know every single child 99.5% of children will actually read they might read in different ways but they will read you know so don't panic you know it's just the first 3 years eventually all of them يعني schooling years eventually رح يقروا بس ايش رح اصعب اذا ابنك بصير يكره القرايه وبنتك بتصير عندها resistance وما تطيقك you know as a mother or as a father وانت you're pressuring her read وهذا getting her back to loving reading will take so much more effort than her learning how to read so calm down and please don't stress about the levels please بعد ما يصيروا بجريد 2 رح يبطل في levels كلهم they're going to access the curriculum you're going to have to keep on reading with them so please don't stress about the levels and focus on enjoying reading together
Exactly بس كمان أنا بيهمني يعني the person who's asking the question how old is the child لأنه you will have different signs when it's too much when the child feels that it's too much and when it's really young kids يعني منهم بعد at school you will have a child who's always trying to move away who's never sitting down with you no matter what you do to try to grab their attention they will try to move away أو بتشوفوهم they're really trying to tell you they will try to tell you whether it's with words or through kind of different movements they will tell you that they're interested by something else so in these situations it's not about pushing them ونجبرهم it's about trying to see what do they like they're bound to like one type of books يمكن it's not something that we have figured out yet إذا عم نحكي عن الأكبر لأنه I know that it's a big issue at the moment getting adolescents to read لأنه هلا everybody's on their phone their social media either we're reading kind of you know over our phones we're not reading kind of actual books so that's a whole different side of things so it's really about trying again to find what is an interesting topic to them حتى إذا it's things that you believe are not the type of books that you would want your adolescents to read at least let's try to find a middle ground to get them used to this idea of let me hold a physical book actually and try to read something it's not an obligation لأنه بالمدرسة جبرونا أنه we need to read this and we hear that so much إنه دايما بنسألهم do you have this kind of summer work and everybody says you know we have to read these 2 books and they're horrible and like Deema was saying a lot of the time those books seem boring to adolescents so it's about trying to find a compromise and okay you have this book that you have to read but let's try to go together and you look for a book that you want make them involved in the process of choosing the books and this is something that actually could help you find a middle ground
Sandra, if I may add, sorry, if I may add, but command to answer. So if any of the audience, you know, you have children below the ages of 2, this is where you have to incorporate reading as part of your daily routine. حتى يعني below 5 daily routine, as in you brush your teeth, you read the book. You know, it could be early in the morning on your way to school, while having breakfast. It could be before bedtime. You know, and I have a very strict rule, and I think one of the reasons a lot of parents, especially عندهم أكتر من طفلين with 2 children, ببطل في reading لأنه الأم بتفكر هي إنه كيف رح أقرأ مع التنين. أنا عم بقول لكم again بعتبر حالي reading advocate أنا I have nannies بالبيت 2 nannies you know my husband travels all the time but when my husband's here he has to read I read the nannies read I don't care who's reading you know as long as there's reading so ما بدي إذا most of the attendees are mothers to feel that it's their responsibility إذا حماتي بتيجي على البيت وبتعيش عنا for 2 weeks 3 weeks during bedtime she has to read for my kids anyone and everyone can read for my kids. And I want you to one thing, it's embedded in our daily routine. And that is, again, you decide what works for you. And بس it's in the routine انه عادي كل قبل ما ينام رح يفرش اسنانه، زي ما قبل ما ينام رح يقرا قصه. مثلا انا مع مرعد بقرا قصتين، مع هزاع بقرا، هلا صار لانه اكبر بقرا قصه واحده بس كنت 3 قصص. So embedding it in your daily routine. Or the other thing that Dr. Pia Shway touched upon, which is adolescence. Before that, there's a big problem in literacy, which it's called decline by 9. I don't want it to be all like theory عليكم كلكم, but decline by 9 is a very important thing that I don't know if we have audience with kids at this age. Most children in general, they become independent readers by the age of 9. Parents take a step back because they can read whatever they want. So what happens? We see that most readers who used to read on a daily basis, that drops by over 60%. They stop reading. Why? And there was a lot of research trying to investigate, why is that happening? And that's happening because, again, decline by 9, parents, ابني بصير يقرا، سو ايش بتصير الام تعمل؟ روح اقرا يلا قبل ما تنام، روح اقرا قبل ما تنام. وايش اللي what do we take away? The connection, the sitting together where mama كانت عم تقعد تقرا معي، عم تحكي معي، عم نتناقش، عم هذا. We completely take that out because he's fluent and he can read alone. So what happens to his reading interest and commitment? It drops. So I always say, parents with children who are older, yes, يمكن ابنك ما بده اياك تقدل معاكي بالتخت تقعدوا تقروا قبل bedtime, but what can you do? You can all read the same book and go on Friday to Cheesecake Factory or Dunkin' Donuts or whatever it is and discuss the book. Or you can say, once a month رح نقرا هذا الكتاب ورح whatever نروح على Trampo Extreme نناقشه. We need to think, because we are now competing with phones, we're competing with YouTube, with Nintendo, with all of that. So 9 is a very important age, and 9 is the age where we need to think creatively كيف نقدر نخليهم متشجعين على القراءة.
And I have 2 points to kind of add to what you were saying. أول وحدة اللي خاصة ب who's reading to the child. It's very important that it's not the same person who's reading to the child, لأنه كل واحد منا has a different way of reading. كل واحد منا as adults رح يعلق على موضوع معين، رح يكون في عنده صوت معين هو عم بيقرأ هيدا القصة. And the child learns. وبعدين بيصير في عنده preferences. وبيصير حتى as a children under 2, they are able to choose which book they want to read with who. And that's important لأنه كمان it shows you the type of connection that you have with them. What are they expecting from you? What is it that they liked about the way that I was reading that they didn't necessarily like about how Dad was reading, and vice versa about another book? Is it the way that we're making the characters, the way that we're making the voices, how much we're connecting with them? So it's important كمان to have that. It's not the duty of one person black, as we want the child to know إنه في عدة أشخاص، لأنه بعدين you're going to see that the child will end up opening up about specific topics مع حدا من الأهل, depending on what type of books they were reading and how they saw that the parent was reading the story. So whatever you are building from kind of early years is gonna كمان map out later on. That adds up to what you were saying, this idea of having kind of how to encourage kids who are older to read. We don't want to break the connection, and you're very right. إنه بعدين هن بيصيروا they're looking for the connection with their friends اللي هي منا necessarily over books, they're over other things. So نحن we want them to know إنه يمكن it's not anymore, unfortunately, a cool thing to read. Fine, do your cool thing with your friends differently, but let's keep something for us. That's our special thing. That's our special bond. We might read the same book, or you can come and tell me what you read, or you can tell me something about a character, or you can ask me questions. We want kids to come and ask questions. Kids, they start reading all of these romances, مثلا, or these kind of tales or whatever they are reading. Tell them, think about something and come and ask me a question about the book. Let's talk about it. So it's about how you're opening up the conversation about a book, whether you are reading it or you haven't read it, but get your kids to know that you still have this connection, but it's different and it's on their own terms as well, لأنه they are growing up. So it's really, really important to focus on that.
ساندرا هون سوري رح interrupt لأنه حكت إشي كتير مهم كمان، وأنا I made the mistake, so بدي كل حدا, I don't know if most of the audience, if you can see the names like females, moms or dads, but if they are moms, don't do أكتر moms?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, don't do my mistake. عم بعملكم full confession that's recorded and live and it'll be on YouTube, أنا عم بقولكم إنه ما بعرف، أنا كنت أتغلب إنه مثلا لما بديت أقرأ مع هزاع obviously وصرت prompt زوجي إنه لازم أنت كمان تقرأ مع هزاع وصار يقرأ، بس غلطت لأنه صرت إنه إيش واقفة فوقه لزوجي نزار إنه مش هيك بتقرا انه غير صوتك لما الفروغ when the frog is gonna like jump or شو يعمل ريبت لازم يعمل ريبت فصرت بوليس وومن حتى كيف بقرا so انه بالاخر زوجي قال لي حلي عني اسمعي you want me to read with the child so what I'm telling you is don't police how people read because that's building on what Dr. Pia was saying as well. خلص, this is their time, this is their connection, and هلا Hazar probably enjoys reading with Nizar much more because Nizar loves history and he unpacks a lot of things. بس Hazar used to enjoy me يمكن قبل أكثر because I'm more animated. بس please give space to your nanny, to your هذا. One thing about, again, if you have help at home, and again, I'm a working mom, or again, I was telling you my husband travels a lot, كان عندي list of books the help at home knew انه انتوا you have to ما بفرق عندي امتى رح ينقروا 2 قبل bedtime بس at least 3 books are going to be read throughout the day لما كان لسه هزاع ومرعد ما يروحوا على النيرسري you have to read them so كان واضح عشان ما بدي انه ينسوا او خلص بس عم بيلعبوا so books were there. The other thing that I wanted to say Dr. Pia mentioned that especially with adolescents انه most of the books that our children are exposed to are published in the West. And in many cases, maybe the books and the content is not aligned with your values and what you believe in and what you want to expose them to. And هنا كتير عندهم the vibe of, let's talk about bullying in a fun way and like سآلة على adults و tricking your parents and all of that. And إحنا we're like, not funny الصراحة. بس our kids are going to read Captain Underpants and they're going to read these annoying, the Diaries of Wimpy Kid, and they're all annoying in my opinion. Best. Are we going to stop them? لا, لأنه الحمد لله المهم تقروا, But what we need to, again, as Dr. Pia said, is give them the space to ask questions. Have you read anything in your book that you think would annoy me? Hazza, did you? قريت إشي ممكن يزعجني أنا. Just to prompt it, هل قريت إشي كتير بضحك بالكتاب? Trying to get these questions لأنه رح يقروا أشياء or they're going to be exposed to things that عن جد in some cases, every family has different values, might be completely different. And بدال ما يدخل على الإنترنت ويفتش, we are praying and hoping إنه رح يجوا يسألونا إحنا because our information, source of information is better. So that's very important with books. So مش إنه خلص صاروا 9 سنين يلا روحوا اقروا. Actually always touching base معهم.
وهذا communication is key. بفتكر هذا آخر شغلة بقى. I think people have questions, but I think in all of the talks that we do, I always say, make sure that you are talking and communicating with your kids, and reading makes them know that they can open up about anything towards you. وهذا it's the basis of a healthy relationship throughout. يعني هن وعم بيكبروا, it keeps هذا connection.
Yeah, true.
We have a lot of questions and you're touching on different points كتير مهمين دكتور بيا وديما. How can we, to go back to what you were saying, Deema, how can we make sure that what our adolescent, our 9+ are reading are safe books أو هن هل في شيء we can go back to a site or maybe on your page في شيء بيقدر يدلنا إنه this is a book?
Your best bet is to research it and Google it, and there's a lot online. You will read a lot of reviews. You're going to read the abstract. But the truth is, you have no. You can't read every chapter book when your kids at the age of like in grade 6. In grade 1, they're reading chapter books. Who has time? The only thing that you pray and hope إنه ماما إذا بتقرأ إشي you're curious about it ما فهمته كتير, was a bit confusing, was a bit strange, or maybe it got you excited and you're curious, please come and ask me and like tell me, and so that's the only thing. لأنه بكذب عليكي لو بقول لك أي حدا during this time and age has the space and time to actually read every single chapter book that is out there for kids. I have a list of chapter books that هيهم مصفطين هنا and لسه ما وصلت لهم لأنه life basically.
Make sure sorry, but make sure as parents كمان to talk to one another, لأنه بتعرفوا kids they share. So يمكن في حدا قرأ كتاب and one of your kids came to talk to you about it, وبعدين there's a friend of theirs who's going to be reading. So أنتوا as parents كمان you can be a support to one another. إنه لا أمبلا I know my kid read that book بس إنه انتبهوا في هيدا الشيء. So make sure that you discuss it. So ما تمنعون يقروا الكتاب unless it's something really major. بس إنه make sure that you are more careful to ask those questions to your child just to make sure that they are kind of getting the right answers from you.
Do you recommend, Deema, on your page certain books at different ages
I
ولا
do recommend different ages, but my passion and my focus is children's books. So I would say 0 to maybe 7. Like that's what I really look at, and adult books, adult as in us adults, like 21 plus or 18 plus. But I don't know. I didn't come across any pages that specifically are for chapter books. I think because it's just really time consuming for people to read that. So I personally don't know of any. But you have Amazon reviews and all of that you can check.
alright عنا سؤال what about comic books
Amazing.
كان كid is it مو في سي des livres يعني comic books so is it okay
100%.
Haida, it's the biggest questions, and I have lots of parents. So I will leave you answer, but just to emphasize that, and I have lots of parents who come and tell me they're not reading books; they're reading comics only. It's not books; it's just drawings. وفيها الكم كلمة يعني. So do these count? So it's we hear it a lot.
again لانه احنا again more traditional انه لازم يكون كله كتابه ولا صوره انه why هلا انا لما when my child is reading comic books I have to prompt him and expose him to different genres انه fantasy, non-fiction, fiction, like different books, because it's good to expose them to different reading styles and writing styles and so on. But absolutely, and if they are interested in comic, try to read one comic book and try to understand why. مثلا Tintin is completely different than Mo Willems' book. Both are comics, Tintin is more adventure, it's more details, it's more exciting. So that's nice. So maybe you can get them a book about adventure. But for the younger kids, مثلا Mo Willems is an amazing, he has the best, funniest books ever, and they're comic, and they make you laugh as a parent probably more than the kids. No, there's no harm in comic, بالعكس. But again, أنا بقول لك ask your child, especially if they're reading comic وأكبر, ليه عم تحبوا الكتاب? What are you liking about it? Is it the adventure? Is it the writing style? Is it لأنه في كلمات قليلة? And then based on that understanding, we try to take them to the library or the bookstore to select books that might have similarities with this.
100%. I think it's about the balance, really understanding the root cause. And we have lots of questions about animes, especially in adolescence. So I have lots of parents who tell me my kids only read animes. Do these count as well? And like you were saying, any book counts as long as there is communication and there is a back and forth with them for you to really understand what do they like about it. And lots of adolescents end up telling me, I love the characters. I love that you can project and you can create also a story about the characters. It's not all written. So ساعتها نحن what we can do is we can try to look for books يمكن that are not just comics, that are a bit similar to that, or that come from maybe the same culture, or that are giving them a middle ground. So not something, with 10,000 chapters and we're going from comics to those really, really thick books. But at least let us ask our child that question, not just say, no, this is not it, or no, you should read something else. Go more under the, okay, what do you like about it? Tell me. Even
why
if
do you like it? Why are you enjoying them so much? Like,
exactly,
what's attracting you to it,
Exactly. Even if to you it's completely uninteresting, if it is interesting to them, let's try to find a connection. Listen to what they're telling you without judging, and then try to find a middle ground. I think this is really, really important.
دكتور بيا قد ايه انت you recommend to parents انه يقروا كتب معينه بفيزز الاولاد عم بيقطعوا فيها يعني it's very common مثلا نشوف انه اوكي بلشنا نقرا عن potty training مثلا مع the child. What about other things مثلا مثل death, lying وهيك قد ايه بتشجعي انه ينقرا كتب
Always.
هيك
Always. And I have parents who ask me about potty training. I have parents who ask me about the terrible twos. I have parents who ask me about death, about sexuality, about discovering your body. And it's always easier to approach these big topics through books. لأنه you're putting it away. You're not talking about you. You're not talking about your child. You're telling a story that is something that you relate to. So first you want to see how is your child reacting to the story. And it's going to be easier for them to ask questions. Why are they crying so much? I saw that my friend, maybe when something happened, they weren't crying. Or why are they saying that we need to put these boundaries? Why is it that this person is allowed to be close to me, but that person is not allowed to? And through the story, it's easier to ask these questions than to ask them about themselves. And then they will start projecting, saying, masalan, mom, this is something that happened at school with X and Y. So they will start kind of talking about things that relate to them. And then bit by bit, you can give your own values. You can give them tips as to if this happens to you, this is how we're going to try things. things. If مثلا we're talking about potty training, you can bring the kind of the book with you, and then, you know, you can go through the steps with your child. If it's about death, you can always, you know, tell your child, you know, let's read the story. What do you think they would have done differently? You would want to do if you are in a situation like that. So it's easier for you to ask the questions and to talk about these topics through books. So there's always this recommendation. There's not a specific list of recommendations of books, but most of the books that relate to these topics tend to be pretty spot on. So yeah.
Deema, what about books, real books or on tablets? سؤال كمان.
So this question, actually, I have a reel about that. You will find, if you want to go for print book, you're going to find research that says print book, print book, print book, print book. If you're going to want to support digital books, you're going to find research that supports digital books. But ultimately, both research says what actually matters is what happens during the reading experience. So the discussions, and it goes back to that. When they are much, much, much younger, obviously, in line with, you know, the screen time requirements and stuff, it's unnecessary. Yani as a 6-month-old, why are you giving him you know, the digital like Kindle or whatever? But as they grow older, they're going to be exposed to that, and it's fine. The important thing is, even if they are reading, they need to have these discussions. وأنا دايما بحكي إنه يعني if you have a system where you يعني let's say emerging readers اللي عم بيتعلموا كيف يقرأوا, أنا from my experience as an educator, I always prefer paper books. Because مرات إنه بيجوا بكبسوا بتقلب الصفحة, they want to make the font, مش قادرين يشوفوه بدهم يكبروه, بلتهوا بالhighlights, بيرجعوا بيعمل voice. So it's just too much, because, you know, the process of reading, you know, you just need a white paper with the words and a picture, you know. But again, for me, these are all details. What matters is انت النقاش اللي عم بيصير بينك وبين طفلك لما يكون في قراية.
100%. I think for younger kids, it's definitely better when it's hard copies. لأنه going back to this manipulation, to the texture, to being able to point, to look at the picture, and to be able to say, you know, that's the word, that's the picture. So ما في the whole kind of the process of it fell, it turned off, it clicked something that it shouldn't click, which removes the whole idea of reading together. لأنه the focus will be elsewhere. When they grow older, because now we're seeing that lots of adolescents specifically are not interested in hard copies anymore. If they're reading through kind of, you know, digital books, then why not? As long as, like we were saying, there's what comes with the experience of reading. It's not just okay, I'm going through the words and through the story. It's really what you're making out of it as a parent and the child.
100%.
أنا سؤال ناطرينه كنا صراحة. أولادنا ما بيحبوا يقروا عربي، شو بدنا نعمل؟
It's the biggest question that we get.
هاي أنا دائما بحكي فيها دكتور فيها if you want to answer, but I'm so passionate about
No, go ahead.
So I think أكبر إشي هو مش إنه أولادنا ما بحبوا يقروا بالعربي، إحنا ما بنحب نقرأ بالعربي, so we're projecting على أولادنا, okay? So إذا إحنا بنحب نقرأ بالعربي, أولادنا رح يحبوا يقروا بالعربي. دائما بيجوا لي أهل بيقولوا لي إنه بس إنه ابني ما بفهم الكلمات والعربي فصحى وإحنا عنا لهجات. أنا شو Let me break it to you. لما تقري مع ابنك بالإنجليزي and he's still 6 months old, كمان هو ما بيعرف الكلمات, you know. So, you know, this is an excuse that you're creating عشان تبعدي من العربي. وبرجع بحكي, I'm an author and I love my books and they're so dear to my heart and I love them. بس hand on heart كتبتهم بالعربي. I don't care لما انت تكوني بالبيت مع ابنك عم تقري اذا بتغيري كلمة صعبة وبتسهليها او بتحكيها بالانجليزي. Like, I'm not policing how you read. I police my husband, of course, but I don't police you at home when you read. So دائما بحكي قبل ما نقرأ قصص بالعربي لأولادنا, إحنا نقرأهم. اقريها. It's going to take you 2 minutes. It's like, I don't know how many, maximum 300 words. رح ياخدك 2 minutes. اقريهم. Get familiar with the book. هيك connect with it. ارتاحي, حبيه, انبسطي. هاي number 1. بعدين اقري له إياه. لأن لما أنت show excitement وإنك مبسوطة وعم تقري, your kids are going to love it. That's number 1. Number 2, don't expose them to, بصير أحكي shitty, the word shitty, I don't know, but I'm going to say it. Don't expose them to shitty Arabic books, okay? لأنه there are high quality, amazing children's books بالعربي. So put the effort to find these books, which is easy. Again, follow a page like my page. ما عم بعمل دعاية لحالي بس because I'm doing all the hard work وعم بقولكم شو تجيبوا. Just go and get these books. They love them. They are amazing. funny, rhyming, amazing illustrations, hilarious, you know, books in Arabic that all kids love, you know. Number 3, again, don't stress about إذا أنت عم تحكي باللبناني أو بتقري وبتحسي إنه ما عمرك رح تحكي كلمة شاحنة. I have no idea. احكي باص. No, just say bus, you know. And I always say إنه لما هذيك المرة كنت عم بقري مثلا مع هزاع we came across a word gigantic, I think, or something, or massive. And he's like, what's massive? I'm like, it's another word for big. Similarly بالعربي لما أكون أقرأ معاه وبقول لي ما بعرف ركض الولد نحو مش عارف السيف مثلا. اوكي السيف فهزعج نفسه قال لي انه سيفتي بوكس I'm like no بالعربي سيف يعني هذا. So I'm like سيف كلمة ثانية لسكينة كبيرة, you know, whatever. So don't be worried about explaining. That's the beauty of language. That's the beauty of reading and learning how to read. So again, and I think it's most of the time what I observe, it's projecting our own insecurities, our own hatred towards Arabic books on our kids. Our kids, when they're young, they don't care as long as it's a fun book.
And I think يمكن هيدا الزيادة when we talk in Lebanon specifically, there's this whole trend العربي منه cool. ليه بدنا نحكي عربي؟ ليه بدنا نتعلم عربي? Anyway, we hear that not about reading, about the Arabic language anyway. Kids somehow hate learning Arabic. They don't understand why they have to learn Arabic because the world أصلا نحنا we're not doing anything خاص بالعربي. So there is that, and I think this not liking to read Arabic is also related to the culture. For people who are Lebanese living in Lebanon, يمكن you would relate to that a bit more. لأنه there's this whole idea of why do that. Why learn Arabic? We're not going to talk to our friends in Arabic. We don't talk in Arabic at home. So why do we need to do this? So this is where your role as a parent comes in, like Deema was saying, to make it easier and not to make it such a big deal. And I think what makes it harder is that the books that are required to be read are old school, and they're very kind of, you know, they're not stories that kids are relating it to. So I think إذا نحن we can facilitate. So thank you for doing the hard work, Lano, and I'm definitely going to go and check out what these books are. لأنه it's very difficult to find funny Arabic books. What's fun about the English ones, the French ones, like you were saying, you know, it's easy to find things that rhyme with very nice illustrations. بالعربي it's very old school. وبالمدارس بعدهم they're giving whole old school books. So إذا نحن we can try to find a middle ground. And look, Arabic is not that bad. You have these fun stories, so let's try to make it fun when we have to read the school ones. And for a lot of kids, one of the things that I tell them is, maybe you're not going to be able to read the story by yourself. That's fine. Sit down with your parents, read the story, but do something nice about it. Do a drawing to write the story. Try to create, to repeat it in English. So try to make it fun in a way that your child is actually sitting down and listening to what you have to say, listening to the Arabic, making it more familiar and making it less kind of, you know, an obligation. And I think this is where our role as parents comes in. I know, yes, we need to familiarize ourselves with it, to remind ourselves that it's not such a big deal. And then automatically it will become easier for kids. But yes, the books that we have don't help, but we have to, I think, say it.
Doing the hard work for you.
Thank you. No, definitely.
لأنه I was completely okay with hearing this, and I'm not saying it's an excuse, but with hearing this 10 years ago. But now we have mothers who are young, who are opening their own publishing houses, who see this as a need. So the quality of their books is amazing. Funny books, educational books. عن جد, the quality is just on par with any other book. So they exist. We need to buy them. We need to. هذا موضوع تاني. This is another session. بس إنه anyways.
That's great. بالعكس إنه نحن نضوي على إنه في alternatives, لأنه part of the kids not reading مثل ما قلتوا هي ما في quality books, relatable books. عنا سؤال من مام عم بتقول إنه she doesn't like to read and she hasn't done the 2-year old kind of reading with them, with her kids. Is it too late?
No,
never.
It's never too late. It's never too late. أول إشي, I would ask her 2 things. Number 1 is she needs to try to understand and explore that feeling of reading for pleasure. So I would say join a book club. We have a book club, and that's actually why I started the book club for adults, is because I had a lot of moms saying, بدي ابني يقرا انا ما بقرا وهيك شو. I'm like, بس انت بتقري؟ she's like, لا ما بقرا. I'm like, okay, book club idea. So it's for free. You can find not my book club, but many book clubs that are for free. Read in whatever language you want, French, Arabic. Most books are translated for adults. Try to read a book that is, you can actually DM me, I'll tell you what book to start with. Get that feeling of reading for pleasure, and your kid is just too, it's so easy to change that. روحي هلا just Google, and again, you can message me, you can Google, top 10 books for a 2-year-old. شوفيهم، جيبيهم على البيت. Put it in your routine, إنه قبل ما تنام اقري كتاب واحد، اقري صفحة واحدة قبل ما تنام. Just for
one page, exactly.
One page for 1 week. Eddie, see how it feels. Next week, read 2 pages. She's gonna love it. You're gonna love it. I guarantee you. And then shway build that routine. And it's not the end of the world. And if she's 2 and you haven't started reading, it's not the end of the world.
في شيء ديما او بيا في شيء ليميت، يعني مثلا اذا ما كانوا بيقروا لحديد 13 it's too late، ولا at any age they can start؟
ما في too late. It's more difficult to change habits, but it's never too late. It's never impossible to do something. It's just about your approach. It's just that when you wait adolescence, لأنه already فيها adolescence فيها rebellion. No, I don't want it to be more complicated, but it doesn't mean that it can't happen.
Yeah. Well, everyone goes through a journey. My mom was a strict, like, you have to read in a very traditional, very إنه بالصيف لازم نسجل حالنا. بتذكر على tape recorder عم نقرا القصة, لأنه she was a doctor, she was working, but we had to record ourselves عشان ترجع تسمع إنه قرينا وما فشقنا, So it was very strict. So I, at some point, did hate reading, So I used to love reading. Then when I became like after 9, I started hating reading. وبعدين high school, I was just reading for school. رحت على الجامعة ما في reading for pleasure. رجعت, I missed it. So رجعت أقرأ for pleasure. بعدين life happened, I stopped reading. بعدين رجعت reading. So it's fine. It's a journey. It's not that children will eventually go to school. يعني even this 2-year-old little girl رح تدخل على nursery eventually. The teacher is going to read, so she's going to be exposed. You're just doing it because it's such a beautiful connection that you don't want to miss out on. It's not...
the change can start with you as well. لأنه don't forget, kids they learn لأنه they observe what we do. So إذا بيشوفوكم إنه أنتوا it's part of it, and wherever you go في كتاب حطكم معكم in your bag, or it's part of the routine. In the morning, at night you have a book, they're gonna start getting the hang of it. So كمان you start with yourself, and then bit by bit you start initiating them to it. So either about reading together or you reading alone, they can see that they become kind of curious about it, because kids, it's all about imitation, especially when they're young. حتى قصص that they don't like, if you're doing it, they want to do it لأنه mom or dad are doing it. So use that when your kids are young. When they're a bit older, it becomes a bit more complicated لأنه it's about communicating to try to see what do they really like حتى نقدر نحن to encourage them to do it, and how can we build this connection together. But there's never a too late.
Agreed.
So يعني to continue the discussion in the same direction, كمان عنا سؤال: should we force our preteens to read؟ ما بيقروا, should we force them to read?
Dr. Pia will speak about, I think, force and teenagers. I think it's what's the word that I'm looking for? They never come together.
Exactly.
But Anna, from a practical way, no, for your preteen, Anna, I would do it as, again, if you can, read something that they're interested in. There are many, many books that they might be, your preteens are interested in, but do something fun out of it. We're a small family book club. Guys, كلنا بابا ماما أنا وإنت رح نقرأ هذا الكتاب ورح نروح على his favorite, I don't know, whatever, Cheesecake Factory, ما بعرف ليه كتير مشتهيته, بس whatever it is, مطعم. We're going to play laser tag afterwards. Whatever it is, we need to motivate them. Again, 20 years ago, we weren't competing with the internet and stuff. So it's hard for them to connect with stories that are interesting and exciting, So, but try to motivate them. Honestly, بعرف external motivation, again, Dr. Pia might say لا, positive reinforcement. But I feel like with something like reading, you need that additional thing until they feel the connection of this internal intrinsic pleasure with reading. I think external motivation is needed الصراحة because of all the temptations.
And I think, you know, you can use the phones and the tablets if you know that it might be easier for them to read something from their phone. It can start with that. It could be just this kind of basic read something, read the news, read something new, read not necessarily a story, not necessarily a book, but just to get them to realize and know when you read something, it's not just what you see online in terms of videos, because don't forget نحن هلا بين TikTok, so all of the videos, all of the reels, all of the shorts, so all of these things, it's just videos. So kids are getting used to having things that are very quick that you can swipe and so you're not sitting down and concentrating on something. So the fact that you're kind of mixing it up and saying, you know, every day I want you to give me some sort of news, a piece of information, something that you read, so that they get more used to having something like word related. And then bit by bit, it becomes kind of a competition. It could be a joke that they're reading. It could be something funny that they're reading, and then that they're coming to share with you. It could become a competition, you know, who has the funniest, who has something like that. And then bit by bit, you will initiate them to read something kind of longer, and then eventually it becomes a book. So take it really step by step instead of forcing. لأنه you know better than we do. And know when it comes to preteens and teens, the more we're forcing, the more they're going to rebel and do the opposite. So let's try to find some way to kind of, you know, push through. And if it means that starting with reading really basic things that they're sharing with you, let's start with that.
Alright. إحنا ما بقى عنا أسئلة. We're out of time كمان يعني we're close to our limit. What would be هيك key takeaway messages نبلش معك ديما to wrap up لليوم إذا بدك هيك بما إنه the parents who are attending tonight يعني شو بدك إياهم ياخدوا 2 things to start tomorrow to action them in this journey of initiating their kids to read?
So I think it's 2 things. Number 1 is your role is not to teach them how to read, but teach them how to enjoy reading. So that's number 1. So reading for pleasure, have fun, enjoy it, exciting, fun. And number 2, بالعربي, don't project your own phobias and your own insecurities and your own traumas in Arabic, because it's a shame in أولادنا, shame لإلهم, their identity, their success in the future, to lose a language just because إحنا تعلمنا بطريقة غلط. So please reach out through Sandra, through Dr. Pia, whatever, if you need Arabic book recommendations, because there is a lot.
Thank you so much. It was really هيك refreshing and a pleasure to يعني your passion was communicate لكلنا. وأنا كمان عندي أولاد and the first thing I'm gonna do tomorrow is check out recommended books. Pia, Dr. Pia, what would be هيك كمان key takeaway ننهي اليوم ونطلع كلنا هيك you know a change الليلة.
And I think having fun with it, I think it's key. And I think through having fun, we mean don't necessarily just stick with what is written. Reading a book is about your interpretation. It's what you're trying to get your child to understand from the book. Creative. I personally know I've never read the same book the same way. Every time كون أنا كمان عم بعلق على شيء معين in the story, and let your child be creative in that. It's okay if they don't sit down, especially when they're young. It's okay if they don't finish it. It's okay if they skip a page. It's okay if they decide to start it from, you know, the end onwards. Understand what they're trying to tell you through these different behaviors while they're reading. Always ask yourself the question, why are they behaving the way that they are? Why don't they like this? Why do they like this? Why are they focusing on that? Why is my adolescent completely refusing this type of book, but they're preferring مثلا to stay on their phone? What is it that they're watching there that I can try to translate into a specific type of book? So always try to understand what they're trying to tell you through their behaviors, whether they like a book too much or whether they completely dislike reading. I think this is really, really important. There's a message, there's a communication that needs to happen. And it's really about building this kind of lines of communication between you and your child from really early onwards, early on until they grow up. I think that's the most important thing.
Thank you so much. Thank you لحضوركم معنا لكل اللي عم يحضرونا. حدا wants to add something? Pia أو ديما حدا بده يزيد شيء؟ Yeah, okay. So thank you so much for being with us tonight. Dr. Pia or Deema, it was really a pleasure. You communicated هيك يعني غير expertise, the passion behind the reading. I hope we يعني عدينا شوي الaudience تبعنا و maybe they can also help in transforming their kids' lives. Big thank you, and hope to see you soon in other roundtables كمان. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.